righty. Welcome back to Jacob V Weekly. I'm here with Boys with Scarves, and we're going to talk all about who and what that is and why. We just want to start by reminding you that the only way to support this show financially is to go to patreon.com/JacobV for your minimum 4 pieces of exclusive monthly content. We also have regular episodes of the podcast lined up for the season, so don't freak out. Also, before we get started, we'd like to remind you to visit our friends at Caddyshack. That's Caddyshack IL on Facebook, independent family-run cat rescue, for which I help with all manner of things. It's a very tiny operation, and if you're going to give anybody money for anything, go help them. Let's jump over. Let's just introduce our friends here. Chris, who have you brought me this morning?
I have brought you my friend Jim Oosley.
Jim Oosley.
Hi, I'm a Gemini, and I enjoy parasailing.
Thank you.
Oh. And
Gemini, that's it. That's what the thing is. I couldn't figure out what the thing was, and it's the Gemini thing, which I'm totally for.
Yeah.
But now I couldn't put my finger on it.
Geminis are weird, and they're a lot of trouble.
Right.
So I need you to realize this going into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, my wife is a Libra.
Okay.
So
Well, that's a problem for me.
and then next to Jim, Chris, who have you brought me today?
well, Jim and I brought you Oscar. Jim and I brought you Oscar Madrid.
Yeah, you kind of stepped on a thing that Jim and I have,
Oh,
which
I'm
is
sorry.
a K-pop duo.
Not good, buddy.
It's called,
You guys still do the K-pop duo thing?
yeah, you know it's called Jim and I.
Mhm.
You knew
I'm
that.
sorry, I did not know.
You
Well,
knew
I'm
that.
not part of
you
it.
knew that.
Yeah.
You knew that, but that's why you did it,
not
because you're
part of it.
spiteful, because you're a demon.
This
Classic
is typical.
Chris.
This is typical
You're a
triangle
fucking-
stuff.
I like-
Because-
I like how he conveniently forgets that we're in a K-pop band together.
Right.
And but for some reason, when we're on tour, he always wants backstage passes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And we told him 1,000 times, no head, no backstage pass.
Right.
Which I don't know why it's a problem, because I've supplied that on several occasions.
You have. You are good. You are good. Nobody
So-
sucks dick like you. Yeah.
I have to
sorry.
start with, I'm actually really excited that you guys are here. I'm sorry I didn't chime in more while I was setting up. I usually am trying to save my chi for when we're on mic here. I didn't necessarily realize going in. I saw the RFT article about Boys with Scarves. I didn't immediately recognize the names, and then there were scarves and sunglasses, so I didn't necessarily pop out that I know all of you guys already for a different thing, and I want to talk about that at some point. But I just listened to the whole album, Boys with Scarves. What should I tell people it is?
Well, it's a sketch comedy record, which really hasn't been done really like we're doing it since the 70s.
I mean, not well the way we are anyway. It has
Sure.
been done well since then.
But it's a bit out of step with time. But it's basically, it's a collection of sketches. It's like going to see, a live show, but it's just the audio version of it.
So it's a sketch comedy record.
Yeah.
And the act, though, is also called Boys with Scarves.
Correct. Yes.
And so what would you call that outfit?
You mean the our fashion? You mean?
No, the operation, like the collection of people.
The collection
I want to
of
get to the
people.
uniform. There's obviously a uniform.
There is a uniform. The uniform is a vibe, but we kind of consider ourselves like a band, like a comedy band,
Right.
a group, and that group is called Boys with Scarves.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was hoping you would say.
And my outfit that I'm wearing right now, by the way, is called Floppy.
Yeah, good.
He's in the streetwear. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So why do a full-length comedy record right now instead of TikToks or YouTube or an episodical comedy podcast? That's a format people are trying.
Because we're old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about this. We did some market research, and we saw a great big gaping hole that we thought we could fill with just a little bit of sketch comedy. and it's just kind of a high market. I think.
I totally agree.
Oscar had a term for this. What did you call that? A beach something?
Yeah, beachhead customer. That's what we were really searching for. I think we're still searching for that. We haven't quite found that early adopter.
And by that you mean one. We're looking for one audience member.
Could we find that perfect?
I think we did find I think we did find a beachhead though. It was like Normandy, where it was just we got fucking totally massacred.
So this is what I was thinking about driving around.
World War II jokes. I mean, like how old?
Yeah,
are
God
we
damn
really?
it, Jim and
case
Oscar.
closed.
You prefer Oscar?
Yeah,
I didn't know if there was a short because it wouldn't be Oz.
Yeah, Oz has never come up. But,
I'm gonna call you that. No, that's my dog's name. I can't call you that. He'll
Okay.
get so upset upstairs if I start calling you that.
Yeah, I've only known him as Oscar.
Yeah. And this Oscar, if you say Oz sit, he will sit.
Yeah, that's what I didn't want to mess him up.
You'll confuse him.
I didn't want to put him off his
Thankfully,
game.
I'm seated and
He's already.
Care of.
Yeah.
It's actually baked into his DNA. Did you want a serious question about how we started?
No.
Answer? Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
People are used to this. If you listen to the show, this happens a lot. So
Okay,
this is all good. I'll be able to rein it in if it gets too off the rails. I actually draw the line at fucking World War II jokes, it turns out.
Oh, shit.
Well, I wish you would have drawn a line sooner.
Yeah.
So my thing is, I am in, mostly the music business, but I started really working as an audio technician professionally, mastering comedy albums for a friend of mine who went on to start a label of stand-up comedy. And the thing that I've learned is that satellite radio was really good for comedy because you could just shuffle in a 3-minute bit from your live album and then you'd get all this exposure, assuming that people, keep the Sirius XM in their car after the 6-month trial expires.
Sure.
And what's happened with streaming is if I go to check out a new artist, I get really aggravated if I just have to randomly shuffle everything in their catalog. So there's an element of streaming that is inviting back the LP length album, I think, because if I want to go check out an artist, I want one whole thing to listen to. Now that could be a playlist. It doesn't have to be referred to as an album or something, but it has to be packaged in a way for the audience that I think is going to get people to stick around and stream something a lot. So when I listened to the record the other day to prepare for this, Boys with Scarves on Spotify is where I listened to it the other day to prepare for this. There's other places. You could get it just about anywhere. You could buy a copy, which is what you should do. But when I was listening to it, I ended up listening to it down here like 3 times in a row because I just had it on in the background while I was doing other things. And so I was really able to catch things the second or third time around that I didn't catch the first time, and I really was able to give all the things their day in court. If it was a series of TikToks I had to watch, it wouldn't have necessarily happened that way. I would have watched each one time, and I maybe wouldn't have even watched all of them. So the fact that it's an LP length thing published as if it were a band, right? I think it makes it really easy to listen to, and it reminds me of like radio things that people will punch into. Like it'd be great to, if we need a break, we could play my favorite sketch from the record because it's a perfect little length of time to kind of.
Which one is your favorite? Do you remember?
Tres Amigos for sure.
Nice.
Who are the younger guys on that one?
Oh, me and Oscar play the kids.
You guys are the kids?
We play Chris's kids.
You
yeah.
sounded so authentically teenage. I literally thought you hired children to do it.
Well, in a way that's true.
Kind
yeah,
of.
In a
Yeah.
way that's true.
And here's the problem we're going to get into doing this right now is just that I don't want to necessarily ruin or spoil any of the arcs of any of the sketches because I do really enjoy them, and listening to them for the first time and being surprised is a big part of the thing, I think. But thinking about all that, I noticed that also stand-up comedians are having this experience too, that like, for example, my Spotify Wrapped last year had tons of Patton Oswalt on it just because he decided to publish all of his comedy albums on Spotify. And so I have a playlist of all my favorite stand-up comedians' albums from Spotify that I could just shuffle. And, it's Maria Bamford and Patton Oswalt and like classic stuff, like older stuff or like newer, edgier stuff or compilations of things. But that streaming platform is almost not necessarily like just bad for business because I think it gives a project like this one the kind of time maybe that it wouldn't if it was like a series of YouTube videos or something that was more like required more undivided attention.
Oh yeah, or just a CD.
Or just a CD, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what, though? Because when Chris told me he was doing this, me and Chris have a long history of taking road trips and listening to the Jerky Boys. And the re-listen value that on those is crazy. We listen to each Jerky Boys compilation at least once every time we go to Chicago. And you would think we've done that trip 3 or 4 times, so you would think we'd get sick of it, but you don't really.
Oh, man, I used to love the Jerky Boys.
Yeah.
I remember before they got the record deal that people would like pass tapes around. They'd copy tapes and pass it around, and that's how I heard about them.
Whoa.
Somebody gave me a tape in DeSoto, and I was like, oh, this is hilarious.
Somebody gave me a tape in DeSoto.
He said
Yeah.
tape.
That's the name of the episode.
A cassette, yeah.
I remember the Jerky Boys were huge inspiration for us when we were in high school or listening to them, and we ended up getting so inspired that we called into talk shows like KMOX, and we would these long form, shows. Jim White's, the big bumper in the night, and he would have his show, and we would ingratiate ourselves and have these conversations and do just normal calls, and then the third or fourth call we would try to beat the delay and say some profane thing or turn a story into this heartwarming story about loss of a loved one. In the end, we're like, make some necrophilia remark at the very last part of it, and it just kind of slips in under the radar. He's not the host isn't quite sure what we said, and
maybe he's not listening all the way.
And we recorded them all on tapes, and we passed them around our high school. All inspired.
Oh my God! Way to do the legwork on like building that relationship.
Oh yeah.
It's like 6 months of work for that.
Got on with Joe Buck, and Joe Buck's giving a shout out to a club that doesn't exist, like our high school show. So like those were the things. Like that was so much fun. So wanting to emulate Jerky Boys and some of those great Adam Sandler records. Like this was what was so much fun about Boys with Scarves.
But one thing I hesitated in bringing the Jerky Boys up when I was telling people about this episode of the show and what we were going to talk about was that that Jerky Boys was obviously very closely an inspiration to Crank Yankers, which had a TV show of prank calls. So I think people think they would over-associate the lo-fi element of a prank call album with this is a very professionally produced record that you guys did. It's very clean. It doesn't sound like people like on the phone, right? It's one thing that I was hesitant because that's the thing that I hadn't thought about either, because I immediately thought, oh, comedy album, Jerky Boys, or stand-up comedy, but it's actually like a produced.
It's more like it kind of harks back to like
Python,
Firesign Theater, Monty Python,
Theater, right,
Cheech and Chong.
Cheech and Chong.
I mean, I grew up just outside Ferguson, and Cheech and Chong was like, at the time Ferguson was like the drug capital of Missouri, basically. That's where everybody got their weed.
God damn it, I do love drugs.
And so did Ferguson at the time. And we would listen to Cheech and Chong records, and even those records, even though they've got you really have to be in the mood to enjoy them, I think, really. But they were also really well produced. I mean, they would launch into a story, and then Tommy Chong would have this great jazz music that he wrote, underneath the track, and they would have sound effects and all that kind of stuff. And really, when you listen to comedy, the devil's in the details, So if you're doing an audio-specific project, as we like to say,
project,
you want to make sure that those little storytelling elements are in there just to give it a fully realized sound
and that was the thing that I think made it like I usually, for example, like we were talking about a more specific lane of comedy that I would stream, for example, in the car or something, like the Crank Yankers or the Jerky Boy stuff is not something I'm going to put on a regular basis, whereas I have a couple tracks from your album on my monthly playlist, and so it's like a nice commercial break from the music to have like some dialogue and whatnot, but they're not trying to sell me anything. It's a comedy sketch. How long are the sketches typically? Because I listened to the whole thing in its entirety, so I didn't time them.
They're varying.
They vary. Our longest is close to 10, I think, right?
Yep.
I don't feel like that's extreme. I don't feel like that's ridiculous. I feel like that's a good length.
No, I don't think so either.
And then the shortest one is like what?
Well, there are some songs on there that are just a minute and a half or 2 minutes or whatever, and then there's I would say probably the other shortest sketch is 4 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
Spaghetti Incident, I'm thinking is probably one of the shorter ones.
The Sea Shanty.
Sea Shanty is another song, right? That's only a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Idiocracy Shanty.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's always a thing. The crossover with music and comedy is something I've always enjoyed because I'm more on the music side of the world usually. And so, but in how do you decide how much of that to include?
Music-wise?
Yeah. Like how much, I mean, so you ended up with 2 songs, but there's also, is there other soundtrack elements musically on the record?
Yeah, I mean, we've got an opening song and an ending song that kind of like, bookend it. And then we've got a nice sea shanty in the middle of it. I mean, that doesn't even count like a lot of the music that Grant. So there's a 4th member, by the way, right?
A 4th boy, yeah.
A 4th boy
and Scarf.
Right. Yeah, well, we share scarves.
It's one scarf.
So yeah,
So
boy with scarf.
Yeah, that didn't sound as good as scarves. So, but Grant Essig, who wasn't able to be here tonight,
I thought he said Essay Goose. Did you hear that? I heard Essay. Grant Essig. Okay,
Essig Goose.
Got it. Yeah. There was just a moment there. I was like, what is he speaking over there? That's amazing.
Who? I think he was saying who is. Grant
I
Essig, who is not able to be.
I don't know.
What do you have to say for yourself, you piece of shit?
Somebody else talk. I don't want to talk.
So you're saying,
but he's well, we've got 2 musicians, right? Jim is also, so Grant is a great musician, singer, songwriter, producer, great artist, designer. I mean, he's like jack of all fun trades, you know. So with him being the 4th member of the group, you know, he's kind of like, he's kind of like the Terry Gilliam of our group, and that, you know, with the production value that he brought to that. So for Jake, Terry Gilliam was from Monty Python. Okay,
yeah, I have a very low tolerance for the English.
The only American. Well, he's American. He's the only American in that group. But anyway, so Grant having those skills, what we really did was we brought together like, what do we do? Like, right? And Grant and Jim are great songwriters, musicians, and so that became a part of it. So we didn't really go. I didn't go in saying, we got to have some music on this, but it was just like, hey, I got an idea, and then we could run with it because we've got 4 very talented boys with scarves.
Oh.
And is there more that I should say there?
we need Jason McIntyre here to drop in a sound effect.
Yeah, that's what we're waiting for.
A fart noise or something.
So that's
that.
also a funny crossover. So you guys produced this record at Sawhorse Studios, where my band Blinded by Stereo did our new vinyl record that we were just in Dayton, Ohio, promoting, and then we're playing this Saturday at the Old Rock House. So what also?
Are we a fucking commercial for you, Jake?
Jesus Christ, Jake!
I'm
selfish. I mean, we come all the way here.
For us?
I'm trying about your fucking music.
I'm
dude.
trying to tell
Let's
my
focus
audience
back on us.
that they can like you because we have the same friends. I'm just pointing out the crossover
This is good,
here,
guys.
So this is again, like I mentioned, in this time of like assholes like me, like producing stuff in their basement. What made you decide to go to like a commercial studio to produce it? Because for me, I would have to plan a lot in advance to save on the hourly rate of working in a commercial studio. So how do you go in and prepare the material for all the different pieces you have to put in?
We didn't necessarily have to pay cash to Jason.
Ooh.
So we were able to work some things out for studio time.
Let me bottleneck this real quick.
Yeah.
Bottleneck.
That's how you got it. You've had a bottleneck. Give him the old bottleneck.
Let me rusty trombone this real fast.
Yeah, not to shit on my own dick here, but
so you get it.
We did. We wanted to go to. Well, I've known Jason McIntyre for a long time, way longer than Chris has known him. Way longer than Chris Annis has known him.
It's been a while.
And he's a really cool guy. He's a really creative guy, and he's very funny. Yeah. And we wanted to record it in a place where we could just sort of control all the sounds. Yeah. We didn't want to go to anybody's house. We wanted an objective.
Yeah, it is super quiet in there,
and that's part of the quality. I mean, that's that speaks to what you mentioned earlier, that the quality of this, the sonic.
Yeah, it's not a bunch of dudes just yelling over each other in some guy's basement.
Look, we mean fucking business.
Yeah, this is serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at
And
this
actually,
phone.
he talked about not paying with money. We actually, what I meant earlier by bottlenecking this, we did pay Jason the hourly rate, but we got the money from Chris. Will go to the airport and he'll camp out in a handicap stall and blow these Pakistani guys who were fucking loaded. And so he'd make all this money. We bring it back to Jason and say, guess what? Give us 6 more hours.
And the older the better, because the faster I can go through them.
Yeah, that old dick is fat with cash. Jacob, what the fuck?
Is this even on?
Are you working on your fucking solo music right now?
I'm making
Jesus.
a beat. I'm making a beat over
Jesus
here.
Christ.
I got a mixtape I got to drop at midnight, and
God
you guys
damn
are
it.
fucking
Get
talking
on the
about
fucking
sucking
ball,
off
dude.
Pakistanis. That's how monkeypox got started. When an old Croatian guy blows a bunch of Pakistanis
Thank
in
you.
the fucking St. Louis airport.
I know. But at the same time, you can't do comedy without risk. You can't do art without risk.
Yeah.
The fact that we made Chris take all the risk
Yeah.
is not really the
And
point.
you know what? He is on borrowed time as it is. He
He is.
knows that, he is on God's time now.
Mhm.
And so you got to
That's
get
why
in that bathroom.
I just keep paying it forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about when the process started. Did you start with I remember you guys meeting to write stuff.
Yeah,
but
we
I'm just-
waited for a pandemic. And then we
Yeah,
said,
that was the plan.
Yeah.
Let's
early on.
wait for this.
It said, okay, so
event.
as soon as
This idea happened in about 1982.
as
and we
soon
were
as
like,
Bill Gates lets loose the bats, let's start this thing.
right. Coronavirus. As soon as we've been waiting for this world-changing event for a long time, and I think again that shows in the quality of the sketch writing, because some of that shit was written in '85.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it was a sketch comedy
Yeah.
album, right?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But when shutdown happened and everything was like just bleak, and
I loved it.
if you're an introvert, if you don't like people,
I had
it was
just
the
bought this
perfect time.
house, and so if I was in my previous house, it would have been different. But the idea that I couldn't go to work, even if I wanted to, was my favorite part.
Oh yeah, totally.
But also, this was a really hard part that I think it reminds me of when Tupac was in jail. Remember, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's gonna have a banging album." He's like, "I can't write an album in jail." Right, so some people have the experience that way. So you found that you finally had time for some of the writing or to entertain a new idea once quarantine happened.
I think honestly, for me, and I'm not. This isn't funny. I just miss my friends.
Yeah,
I just miss my friends, and so I wanted to.
that is.
What's funny is that's plural.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
No, I did. I did miss Oscar
I missed
and Chris.
both of those guys.
Yeah.
I missed Oscar and Chris. I really did. And
Yeah.
so
You can't
this
ever
was
turn
a
it
great-
off.
It was a great way for us to get together and kind of do what we do. And then, we couldn't go out and perform live shows. Obviously, everything was shut down, and we didn't have time to really do those things anyway. So doing a sketch comedy record it seemed like a perfect fit for the time.
Because you could write it as you had time to write it, then you could cut it as you had time to cut it, and then you could release it, and it's not like an ongoing commitment where you have to be at band practice every Wednesday
Exactly.
at 6:30 or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, it was kind of a fun process where we would get together, we would share kind of the latest sketch that we had written, and then we would judge it based on how much we made each other laugh in the room, and then we'd go away, come back the next weekend or a couple weeks later, and then test out a couple more ideas, and then we ended up kind of narrowing it down till we had kind of that top 10. And then as we were talking about earlier, we started to kind of add the colors around it with some of the songs. But
Yeah.
it was a fun process. If we get into that, that environment, and we're kind of like I don't know, Jim, there's a laugh that you do where I know that if he laughs in that way, I'm like, okay, this is a good one. Well, let's continue working on this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we.
And it's involuntary.
Yeah.
It's a caliber of
Well,
laughter
the
that
thing is, we've known each other since the last pandemic before this one, the 1918 one.
The Spanish flu.
Yeah.
We've established a nice comfort level where we can be critical and we know what.
We put
Well,
out
and because you had that last one, you knew what you wanted to do differently the next time.
Yeah.
Thank
and you
you.
said as soon as Bill Gates lets those bats loose.
Well, it's similar to George Lucas,
yeah.
right? We had to wait for the technology to become
right.
available so that we could record it.
the first one was a sketch comedy phonograph.
Phonograph, yeah. And that's highbrow. That's expensive. And so then you got to think about the people that can afford a phonograph in their home.
Right.
He gets it.
Yeah, it was kind of like when Tupac. I don't know if you remember this. When Tupac was in jail.
When Tupac was in jail, this is exactly
when
what I was going
Tupac
to
was
say.
in jail, he was like, "I can't record anything because guess what? I've got no fucking equipment.
I'm in
dude."
fucking jail.
So
and
exactly,
it's
so
the 90s.
I'm gonna get out of here. Then
I
I'll
can't get a
record my
2-inch
bomb-ass
reel
record. Yeah,
in the cell block.
Yep.
But he actually gave a mixtape to somebody in Ferguson, I think.
yeah,
I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Why?
Well, he looked lonely, and we were there, and we had a CD.
Do you know how many mixtapes I left with the first time we went to Wrigley Field, Chris? The first time Chris and I went to go see a Cubs game at Wrigley Field, there are panhandlers that will rap at you for money, and then they'll give you their mixtape. And I had like 4 of them hung over in the truck on the way back the next day.
That happened. That's big in St. Louis, man.
Where?
That's in the city, you can see it on Grand. I know on Florissant Road, in like Cool Valley, they rap on a corner for you, and like they'll give you their fucking mixtape.
You're so plugged in.
You
Dude,
were
totally.
He's got
I plugged into North County.
yeah. He is plugged right in to. He's got his finger on the pulse of the culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
guys,
He's our pipeline to relevance.
yeah,
The zeitgeist.
Oh man, I'm right on the edge.
Zeitgeist, am I right?
yeah. Wow.
It's kind of like when Tupac was in jail.
You remember when Tupac was in jail?
No, like he was in jail, right? But the guy fucking knew what was going on the streets.
No, he knew exactly what was
You
going.
know what
Maybe
I mean?
even better from
and
the
they were
inside.
like, "How can you don't have a notepad and a pen? How do you know
what's going on in the
songs?"
street?
And he's like,
Yeah.
"Well,
you
I'm
got the
plugged
new
in."
Jordans and you're in jail,
plugged
but I
in.
can't get a
Yeah.
mixtape.
Yeah, so
Tupac?
I think that was the point when I stopped getting compared to Tupac aesthetically, and I started getting compared to Tupac artistically.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
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 So, who's this Tupac fella?
He's
our beachhead, man.
You wouldn't like him.
This album, if you play this album backwards, it says Tupac over and over again. Because he's our beachfront. Wait, beachfront property.
Beachfront.
Beachfront
Yeah. That
property.
works, too.
He's a beach house. What?
Mhm.
Beach head.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, for us, it means, who is that, that super fan out there?
Right.
We haven't found them yet, but I think we kind of all
I haven't
know
found
what
it just a
We're
regular
always
fan.
that's the
really,
thing. We're always learning because when he said beachhead, I thought that was kind of like roadhead when you meet a
Yeah,
nice
you head on the
pretty girl
beach.
on the beach. And
Like when
yeah.
when you get up and your vesicles are empty, but you got an ass crack full of sand.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Beachhead.
I did Airport Head. Maybe for the next album, I'll do Beachhead.
A beachhead is more fun than airport head. I'll tell you that any day of the
I
week.
guess so. I like.
It's
how you
lower
call it that,
impact all
because
around.
When you would go to the airport and do that stuff, I called it Pakistani fanny.
Ugh. I don't like that at all.
Oh, sorry. The fucking moral majority's here. Jesus Christ. Sorry I offended you.
So one thing I realized while I was setting up your guys' microphones is that I recognize you guys individually, but also together as people that worked on a film I liked once upon a time called Hooch and Daddy-O. And I didn't necessarily want to put this. We're 30 minutes in, so it's okay if we talk about this. At this point, I didn't want to lead with that. I didn't want it to be something you had to overcome as like a cloud of previous activity influencing the current discussion. But I really enjoyed Hooch and Daddy-O as a film and as an idea, and being able to hear about the process behind the scenes. It feels like it's been 1,000 years by now. So for people that are tuning in and they're excited about Boys with Scarves, but they don't necessarily know about that, what was Hooch and Daddy-O?
Hooch and Daddy-O was the TV show you can't remember, but the documentary
You'll never forget.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a mockumentary that that kind of started in the same place that this album started, right? It was
My basement?
in your basement.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, just spitballing ideas that eventually became a script, which eventually we were able to wrangle some really talented friends to help us produce on weekends.
Yeah. Our intention actually was like, we all worked with Magic Smoky Monkey Theater, which is kind of like the bastard offshoot of St. Louis Shakespeare. And we, they would do like late night versions of like cult movies and TV shows and that kind of thing. And we were doing those shows, and we really wanted to document for posterity all of our funny friends. So we thought we would innocently, oh, let's do a movie.
Yeah.
Not knowing the actual work.
Oh yeah,
involved
you
in doing
need
the movie.
you need a talented crew and equipment, and you need a
Time.
shooting schedule and time and locations.
Oh, shot list.
Yeah.
Catering, right.
What is
okay.
that? Yeah. So I think we learned
What
by
is the
maybe the
catering
third
thing?
month.
Why does everyone always complain about catering?
Well,
like, is it you have to cater?
It took a while for us to realize that after 12 hours of free labor, people want to eat a sandwich or something. So that was a tough lesson to learn.
That's when you make a run at Del Taco.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is pre-Postmates, so it's
Yeah,
also not something you could just say. Just get fucking 1,000
Yeah.
Jack in the Box tacos and leave them on the doorstep.
This is
and let's keep working.
2002, 2003.
Wow.
And I think at that time we actually went and did the fast food run. It was a Burger King run. We were pretty clever, right? Because we decided that we would use the food to feed the crew and also use the food to put on my face for a shot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Where I drop a
Yeah. If you
bag
can
of
use, if you
hamburgers.
can merge the
Yeah.
catering budget with the prop budget,
Yeah.
I recommend it.
That worked out well.
We do that on this show. It's usually like, listen, we need something to talk about. I haven't eaten. I tried to get Clay to leave the podcast one time to go get down the street. There's a White Castle, and I wanted him to get the Crave Clutch, which is like a little Crave case of like 20. Chris, can you go to White Castle and get us a Crave Clutch?
Okay.
I do double bacon cheese.
It actually sounds really good. I haven't had dinner yet, so
That would fuck us up though.
yeah, it
Maybe
would.
That would
find an
ruin
old
the show.
Pakistani
Like 10
guy
minutes
there, too.
after those showed up, we'd be like, I guess we got to get out of here. I got to go to sleep. So we were talking a little bit beforehand. So Hooch Daddy-O is a mockumentary, I guess you would call it now. I don't know if that term was as common then. There definitely were examples. It just was. I feel like there was like a whole show of these.
Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, right later.
But we had to explain what it was for a while. Yeah. at that
Well,
time.
right, and so it's a comedy film shot in the style of a documentary about the people that made this fictional buddy cop show back in the day. Sort of, was it 70s or 80s?
80s.
80s.
Yeah, we actually, we were trying to construct that outline for that show. I remember we spent a lot of time that you don't get the payoff of this in the film, but we actually went to a calendar for 1982 to 1984 and outlined what the Friday night synopses would be for each episode.
Oh, that's right.
And built out this whole, catalog of these ideas. And then in the mockumentary, you might see 5 or 6 little clips from those different episodes.
Yeah, we actually went and did a synopsis for every episode of Hooch and Daddy-O that ran for 3 seasons.
Like 70 episodes.
Yeah, and you can find it online still. If you do a search for that, you can still find it. It was
Yeah, Angel Fire's probably still hosting it.
probably.
I have like a Media Fire account that just has like 10 things in it that I just sign in every couple of years so they don't delete it. But I'm like, I could just put this somewhere else and not keep doing this. So, and that's on Tubi and probably YouTube for people that want to go check that out. Like I mentioned, the record is on Boys with Scarves by Boys with Scarves, is on Spotify and Apple Music, and I know it's on CD available. Is it just locally at a handful of?
Just locally, yes, at Vintage Vinyl, Euclid Records, and Planet Score,
iTunes,
and iTunes.
YouTube,
YouTube,
right? The whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
Amazon,
Yeah.
everything.
and what stores is it in? Do we know?
Yep, it's at Vintage Vinyl, Euclid Records, and Planet Score.
Oh, you just said that.
I mean, I didn't want to say anything. Yeah,
Your delivery was better the second time.
thank you.
I think we'll keep the second one.
Okay.
I
But,
love that.
What stores are they at?
What's and
Vintage Vinyl,
just
Euclid Records.
No, no.
before
I'm
we
sorry.
get before
You
we
said
get
that
to
already.
that, before
Well,
Jim, you said that already.
He did.
Well,
say that.
I just want to get this
You're
in
repeating
it.
yourself.
I just want to get this
But
in
this
it.
time you didn't say Planet Score. I
It's-
noticed the first 2 times he said
no.
Planet
It's
Score.
at Planet-
Score or
yeah.
not?
It's at
Yeah.
Planet Score.
But here's my thing.
Yeah.
If I want to go buy the CD,
Yeah.
where do I go?
Oh,
Well-
that's a good question.
Yes.
Either Planet Score.
Wait, Jim,
Yeah.
Can we let Oscar take this?
Oh yeah. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. Apple.
Okay.
Music.
Oh fuck it. It's a Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
It's a Vintage Vinyl, Euclid Records, and Planet Score. Fuck,
Damn
Oscar.
it! I knew those.
It's just 3 fucking stores,
Yeah,
man.
I know.
Jesus.
Wow.
Schnooks.
So
Pay
have
away.
you guys? I know this is always like a thing. It's like it took so much to get the record done, the record out. Is there talks of doing similar projects, a sequel even? Is it something you think has life to do, like more of the same thing, or would you take the same creative engine and kind of put it behind something different?
Well, we've surveyed our 4 monthly listeners on Spotify, and so far, they're clamoring for more. I think
That's always the problem, isn't it? Like the 10 people that know about the thing want more things.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
but it's like, I need more people to know about the first thing before I can make
Yeah.
you another thing.
Well, I think we're going to head to a different beach.
Right.
What
this
does
is
that
the
mean?
Pakistani beach.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, why not? Two
Yeah.
birds. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like when Tupac was in jail.
Do you guys remember
Vintage vinyl.
when Tupac was in
Planet
jail
Score.
and he went to Planet
Score.
Score?
Euclid.
He said, "Guys, I can't get down to
Records.
Planet Score or Euclid or Vintage Vinyl."
Dude, I'll tell you.
You know what? Fuck
I'll tell you right now, Jacob. Listen.
this guy. You guys don't understand what I'm dealing with over here.
When-
Chris, I need your backup on this because I feel truly.
Are you closing?
While you're-
Are we still recording? Are you
Yeah,
closing?
yeah.
While you're doing this, let me tell you a story. So when
Sorry.
Tupac was
Are
in
we
jail,
interrupting your album?
do you guys know when Tupac was in jail,
No, I got
he had just recorded California with fucking Dre, right?
Yeah.
And he was in the jail, and a journalist came from like Vibe or Essence or whatever it was.
Essence, Jim.
I'm spitballing. I'm just spitballing here. I
It
wasn't
must have
there.
been Essence.
I wasn't there, but
He's just freeballing here. Let him.
yeah.
Here's my thing. I have a disabled crazy guy that thinks I work for him, and he was just blowing my phone
Oh,
up
Lord,
because he
yeah.
wants his Google password.
Yeah.
And so I asked you about where to get the CD, and I want people to know where to get the CD.
Okay.
And then he was no, and he was blowing.
Jim.
No, I'm not done yet. But he was blowing me up, and then I'm thinking, okay, I sent him the password so he can. He literally called me 5 times while you were saying Vintage Vinyl, Euclid Records, Planet Score, literally 5 times. And the only reason I responded is because I was afraid he was going to barge in here. Because if
He might be outside.
well, and I don't want that to happen.
He's popped up. But I just want to give. I want to give the listeners a visual because Jake suddenly stopped, took his microphone, held it with 2 hands, and spun around to look at us like he's a.
It's like Maury Povich.
He's like
I
a
love
pastor or something, and suddenly the tone dropped.
Yeah,
Listen, fellas.
that's a new thing I think I'm going to do.
And it's because like this crazy motherfucker might be outside right now with a shovel and some lye.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's the thing.
We may never hear from Jake again.
He
after
would
that.
be surprised if he barged in here and there were 4 adult men that he would then have to take down. But I don't know you very well, Oscar.
Yeah.
But speaking for the rest of us, he would kill all 4 of us with that shovel. Unless one of you is heavily armed and I didn't know about it. Because
It just dawned on me that this is turning out like every one of our projects does.
is it some
So-
psychotic,
It just-
disabled veteran,
It just sort of
ex-con felon?
decomposes, and there's an outside threat, and that
Yeah,
outside threat is
there's an
crazy.
outside. You guys want to do a comedy album? Oh wait, world-changing pandemic. That's what,
I'll be honest. This is how I want to go. Just like this.
Listen,
I agree, like
Yeah,
a man,
this would
like
be
a
a
man.
nice moment.
Yeah.
Right
can you
now.
think
A
about?
Sopranos moment where it just goes
let me-
dark right.
Right.
Here's what Oscar. Here's what I want.
Wax us down here.
This is what I want you to think about: is if we.
And by the way, he's. I'm just going to paint the picture. Keep talking. He's turned and he's facing us again with the mic.
I'm
So-
loving
And
this
he's
look.
making eye contact.
if somebody came in here
Serious
and murdered
face.
us all right now with a shovel,
Serious face.
and then we were able to get the episode launched afterwards,
Yeah.
the Spotify numbers would be really good
Right.
for the album.
We should have got someone to come down here and fucking kill us.
So you have his number, right?
I'm sure he's called me again.
You know what's crazy? I've got an actual story. I know we're joking about this, but I've got an actual story. When I was in a band, called Bonehouse,
Uh-huh.
and we were recording.
Another
That's
promotion for another band.
another commercial.
Guys, got to go with
Guys,
you.
I have a comedy album and everyone's talking about
Old
their
Rock
bands.
House this weekend.
I'm tying this in. So what happened? This is an actual thing. So we were recording at this place called 48K Sound, and it was owned by a guy named Ben, who now runs sound for like Cool and the Gang or something like that. And our manager, we were the only rock band on this manager's roster. I'm totally serious about this. And basically this manager wasn't doing anything for us. So I said, look, we want to part ways with you and we don't want to work with you anymore.
Wow.
So one of the rappers on his roster came to the studio in the basement while we were there with a bottle of wine, right? He gives us the bottle of wine. You guys want some wine? And we were like, no, we're good. He goes, you sure? And I go, yeah, we don't want any. That's okay. He goes, okay, I'll talk to you in a bit. He goes outside. I found this years ago to make a phone call. I found out later he made a phone call to this guy, Bob, who was the manager guy, and asked him, you want me to kill these motherfuckers? And he had a gun on him. And the guy said, no, just leave him alone.
No, don't kill him. It's fine.
That's a true story.
So he was going to whack you because
we disrespected, in his eyes,
his
the
manager.
The manager, yeah.
That's loyalty.
Yeah.
Do you know how much harder I would book that guy? If I'm the manager and then my guy says, hey, I was going to whack that band for you.
Yeah. And these guys think I'm joking, but this is actually a true story.
So
I believe it because that's
just for the listeners again. So no, Jim has gotten really serious and close to the mic and closer to Jake because they share this. They might kiss any minute. So if you can't see this, can anyone really see this? Right? Can they see this?
on Patreon, they'll be able to see it.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
We're
Yeah.
saving
Can
it.
you guys get closer?
If I was any closer, I'd be
Good.
through them.
Kiss, 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 kiss.
kiss.
So I want to apologize
No,
Oh.
don't
for my
listen.
because I was so excited
no.
about this, and I'm so happy you're here, and I do truly love the record, and now I'm strapped in, and now if I got to take a shit, I'm gonna shit in my pants.
Oh, God, don't do
Because
that.
I'll shit right in my pants, Jim.
You
That'll
are
hurt.
so
Listen,
sweet.
Jacob,
I
that'll
will
hurt us
fill
more than it
these
hurts
pants
you.
with shit.
Thank you.
That's the commitment. And these are nice microphones. Those are Sennheisers, brother.
I like them.
I know they were made in a tree by little German elves.
Are you saying you don't want to get shit on these microphones?
So what do you? So
what's it like to be a Jew?
So
Good reference.
what's it like? So my thing is, I totally understand having a podcast is very similar to the idea that people are like, when's the next episode? I'm like, well, I know you didn't listen to the last one because I get the metrics. And so if you were like caught up, I would feel more compelled to crank those things up. So I feel like it's a really great album for the experience I had listening to it, where I could give it as much time as I needed to really climb into it and really give it a chance. And it wasn't hard I didn't have to keep going back and skipping ads, like if it was a podcast or something or a YouTube video. I didn't have to babysit it at all. If I put it on I don't want to say her name, my Amazon assistant over here, because I didn't want her to I didn't want the NSA to get an early access to the episode. That like I could just let it rip down here, and I really needed like 3 listens before I even noticed that I was re-listening. It's like, okay, I can change it now. I feel like I've heard it or whatever. So I feel like the album, especially in I want to talk about the CD format too, because I do think that is also valuable. But I want to advocate for a little bit that the format of sketch comedy in audio, when you have a LP length album to stream and kind of duplicate or take pieces of to put with your other audio content that you carry around with you every day, I feel like it's a good example of how we can use that medium that way. And so I definitely want to encourage not just you guys, but other creatives also to consider it, because it's like you mentioned, to get a collaboration going between the 4 of you, because there's 4 with Terry Gilliam. Terry,
That's his name.
Yep.
where can can Tupac get the CD from jail?
Well, I don't know if they well, no, they deliver. Vintage Vinyl, Euclid Records, and if I'm not mistaken, Planet Score.
Planet Score. There's not a 4th one?
No, you're thinking about the 4th member, Terry Gilliam.
Terry Gilliam,
Yeah.
Right.
who also worked with
Cool
Cool and the Gang.
Cool in the Gang.
Right.
Cool in the
Correct.
Gang.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
So
Bob.
I think the album is I think the way I experienced it is really great, and I wish I had 10 more examples of something like that, and I'm sure they exist, but I wish I knew of 10 more examples of albums like this that I could go listen to because I found it really enjoyable. So, but do you feel like you're up against sort of it's maybe an uncultivated area of the market, and like you're saying, that's maybe what you're saying by Beachhead, who is your ideal
It's funny. When we put the album out, right? Like, obviously, Jim alluded to this in the Riverfront Times piece that not much of a plan, right? Like,
Yeah.
it was there and available, but we were like, we should get it reviewed, right? We should get somebody to cover this. And Google will tell you that nobody reviews sketch comedy albums because they don't really exist.
Yeah.
They're not really
Yeah.
produced, which was a really interesting problem. But
I think it's a hard thing for people to put on a 10-minute sketch and listen to the entire 10 minutes.
Well, that's
Even
why I
though
was
these are
glad-
quality 10 minutes I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's just not the aesthetic anymore. Because you can get it
well,
all
but
on a
that's what I
1-minute
was
TikTok.
saying about.
Right.
That's what I love about the idea that it's a full length album. Because if I'm driving somewhere, I have at least 10 minutes.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what I don't have is time to scroll. My brother-in-law does this. He's been on the show before. Where you get in the car with him to go somewhere. We were on vacation together, and every time we get in the car, I'm all buckled in. I'm like ready to go, and we're sitting there, and he's just scrolling on his phone trying to pick the playlist that he wants to listen to in the car because he doesn't want to have to babysit it, but he hates everything he picks, and so it's like a constant like battle. So if I'm on my own though, and I'm driving in the car, it's easy for me to throw on something like that. If it was like I mentioned, if it was a folder full of TikToks, I have to only do that, and so it's harder for me to make that commitment to you as the artist to do that. Where the audio thing, like if you had sent me a new series of something you were filming, like that's
Right.
hard for me to. That's like reading a book. Like I have to really like intentionally set up that experience.
And that might speak to the CD format too, because we
that's
talked
what I
about
want to
this.
talk about next.
Right, because the CD format, I don't know if anyone really puts a CD on around the house anymore. They might, but to me, it's like it's car listening and it's road trip listening.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I love
Road trip,
listening-
especially for me.
I love listening to concept albums in the car.
Yeah.
because I listen to them from front to back.
Yeah.
I'm not shuffling.
Yeah.
I'm not getting out of the car, getting back in, and losing what they're trying to
You're
create.
not turning it off to order 2 Filet-O-Fishes.
Right.
That's
well,
the new move. You got to do the double Filet-O-Fish with
McRib,
4
maybe.
Diet Coke.
Like when
No,
those
no.
come back.
No, because last time the McRib came back, I had one, and I got the second one for $1 because I'm not a schmuck. It's
Yeah,
a limited
right,
thing.
$1.
It's seasonal.
Right.
But then I took one bite of the first one, and I'm like,
Really?
I got 2 of these to get through. It tastes like the riblet patty from school lunch.
And my
like
thing
back
is,
in the day.
I take one bite and I go, I got 2 of these to get through.
That's how I feel about the Filet-O-Fish. But that processed porky afterbirth of the patty is not my vibe.
That would be a great title for the next album.
Porky
Wait,
afterbirth.
labyrinth title.
Yeah.
That's what it would be. Yeah.
Porky afterbirth.
Yeah, it's a
Processed porky.
processed porky afterbirth
scarves.
With scarves.
Porky afterbirth with scarves.
Because that's exactly the thing too. Is that like the CD is going to be something that I may throw on down here because I have the stuff set up. But like you're saying, if you just moved into an apartment, your CD player is probably not at the top of your list of things to have set up. Yeah. But the CD format, and even in your computer anymore, you don't really have anywhere to put it. Yeah. But definitely the road trip. I have my big binder of CDs right here that we bust out for road trips and stuff like you're used to, but usually just exclusively for that. And so that's where we get to our Christmas records that you and I have worked on before. And do you ever get those?
I love them.
Yeah.
I had a cameo in the last one.
I'm excited about. I've been working on some ideas musically for this year. I thought it'd be fun if I wrote some things and then you could kind of write. We'll talk about this later. This is the tangential. Another fucking band, Oscar. I'm so
I love
sorry.
it. No, I love it.
This is
I love it.
my Christmas band with my uncle.
These guys will take our ideas. So
No, that's
right
what
now,
I'm
we're not
saying.
gonna
Is
say-
we got to keep it on because we'll wake up and it'll all be on TikTok
Yeah,
tomorrow.
there's
They'll be
gonna
like,
be-
"These guys think you don't need."
There's going to be a
TikTok."
Porky Afterbirth
Yeah, we're gonna wake up.
Christmas album.
Fucking
Noted.
Jim is going to stay up all night. He's going to shoot a TikTok short called "Porky Afterbirth." It's
Guys,
gonna
I'm
be-
writing it right down in my head.
It's
So
going to be
you done fucked up.
Yeah, he's going to be ready to shoot right by the time he gets home.
Passing out mixtapes on Grand.
Yeah, and then he's going to take it to the people. He's going to take it down on Grand. and Jefferson, and he's gonna
Florissant Road, Cool Valley, yeah.
Florissant, Cool Valley.
Guys, I've got my spots.
I know where people
money.
want a mixtape. I love how the cats hate this show. And they do this. He is so upset that I set a camera up to talk to you. He is going to lay right in front of. I don't know if he's in the shot. He's kind of in the shot. Look at that gut. You want to talk about afterbirth?
He's a pretty boy.
God,
he's a handsome boy.
So, but also, like we were saying, the CD is also one of those things where if you just send me one track, I may or may not listen to a 10-minute track. But if you say, "Hey, you're driving somewhere." Listen, and people do this on social media all the time. They ask for recommendations for things to listen to in the car. So if you have a podcast or something, I notice organically that need arising where people want long form stuff. I think maybe because of the popularity of some of those other platforms we've talked about, maybe people aren't pursuing that as much because it's a vulnerability. If one of these sketches was unlistenably unfunny, I would have taken me out of the whole thing. But the fact that you can create an hour long album of, is it about an hour?
Yeah, but I want to stop you real fast. Can we use that for a review blurb? None of these sketches are what was it again? Unlistenably not funny.
Yeah. They're not. None of them
That's
are.
That's a good review. We should put that. Put that in quotes.
But I want to draw attention to that because we know of like musical albums that like they may have one song you like and the rest of it is like I'm not even going to really give it a chance. Whereas, and stand-up comedy is going to be the same way. If I put on a stand-up comedy album and I don't like the first bit, good luck, because I could just skip it, and there's thousands of creators out there.
But you know the way you listen to it though, I think is great because I'm growing up. I'm an older guy. I listen to full albums.
I love
all the way
it
through, and that's the way that you listen. And that's kind of our beachhead. In a way, people who can take the time and have the patience to listen to a full piece of work.
There's movement to this. I mean, there really is. It takes, I think, to switch gears, it takes a sketch or two to start really getting into the vibe of like, oh yeah, this is how sketch comedy works. This is how those old albums work.
Yeah.
And then you kind of sink in and then just enjoy the ride. And then it closes out that way too.
It kind of worked that way for us while creating it though.
Yeah.
So we wrote these sketches, but they didn't really come to life until we were together and working through all the atmospheric stuff that we put together, the sound effects with Jason, and even down to creating our own like Foley, like our own sound effects with Jim. Jim Zipper, by the way, prominently featured in one
Jimmy
of the sketches.
Zipper.
Yeah,
I'm really.
Don't be modest.
I just got to say this. Nobody really mentions the zipper work that I done on the record, and Oscar did.
It's like an instrument.
He didn't have to do that, and I just want to say thank you.
He said, "If you mention it, I'm not going to be mad." That's what he said before we came in here.
But that was like a couple months ago. I didn't expect him to actually fucking do it.
It was really bullet points on our meeting. We had an agenda for tonight, and that was one of the
must-have.
Yeah, it was a must.
I wasn't at that. Was there a meeting?
Oh,
that
was
moving on.
Just okay.
But
Jim provided sound effects that, like, realistically, that's why some of these sound so real. There's a scene with a monkey that that's what you hear. Really, is what was happening in the studio.
Are you
at the time?
Is that the one with the pleasure device?
I was just
Actually,
actually that wasn't Jim.
I really love that. Who did the voice of the executive on that one?
Oh, that was Jim. I was the.
You were the designer.
I was I was the guy working.
Or whatever.
I was the grunt.
He was the executive.
He was the executive.
Because I love it. Sounded like almost like prepackaged like HR like training voice, and then it stays really like your lines in the first bit of that sketch stay really like neutral, like you could just be responding to anybody. It's almost like when you call the bank and you've talked to the thing now, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the last 10 years probably, but and then when it starts to get you start to get upset, you know what I mean? It's still that voice, and that
was actually a direction from Oscar.
Well, and I should say, we could do a whole, talk about next albums, we could do a whole album of like office or business type humor, because we wrote a bunch. And Oscar wrote some really, really killer, great, like, Spaghetti Incident, another more corporate kind of thing. Telly's a corporate type thing. And there are at least 3 other, maybe 4 other sketches written that are that are hilarious.
So
that
you're
didn't make it
saying
onto
there
the
are
album.
B-sides.
Well, I mean, but he brought his experience to this.
Yeah.
You know, we all do, you know, but to me, that world of Oscars is kind of a foreign world. So I loved like every word of it because it was all just like this office type or corporate speak that I think is not like maybe played up enough.
It's funny.
And we were really like skewering it, I thought.
There's like just when you have that, you know, just very serious like restraint that you're describing, you know, with Jim's character and that evenness, and then you have that ridiculousness of the situation. I think that plays really well. There's actually a line that's not in one of those corporate sketches that I love from one of your experiences, Jim, in a corporate environment around the male penetration. Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah. So I was in a meeting at work, a big meeting, and it involved a mail order delivery system for a certain product, and the big director manager guy was like, yeah, we're going to start spending a lot of money on male penetration. And me and this other guy were in the back dying. And I just filed it away. I was like, I've got to use that for something.
And here was our
And
opportunity.
here was an opportunity, yeah.
And then the world ended, and then I could finally use it.
And when he said it, like Chris's character in the sketch, he thought nothing of it. He didn't think it was funny. He didn't get the double entendre. It was like male penetration without irony, without humor.
Yeah.
And that made it even better.
And we're you know, we mentioned Magic Smoking Monkey Theater and just kind of like the stiltedness of like Ed Wood and some of that writing and just the delivery and those movies and the performances by those actors. We did a lot of that with the late night sketch comedy that we did, and I think it comes to life in some of those moments on this album, which I love.
So do you guys have personal favorites of sketches on the album? I would recommend, if you're just going to start with Boys with Scarves and you're just going to listen to one track first, my favorite was Tres Amigos. Tres Amigos something. That's the beginning of it, but
versus
I don't speak Spanish.
Natural, yeah.
And do you guys have personal favorites?
Well, it's like it depends on the mood, but I think one of my favorites is definitely Ateli's 3000.
3000, yeah.
3000, yeah. Because it's just it's so
I think
juvenile.
4000 is coming out for the next album.
Okay. Because it's just so juvenile. I think I said this somewhere else, but our sense of humor has not evolved since our early teens.
And that's also something I like about the format of doing it in like a consolidated, like doing a full length LP where it's not on some platform where you have to like be very careful about what type of jokes or what type of words or topics. You know what I mean? Like you could just put the little E on there from Tipper Gore or whatever, and then that's all you have to, and then you can have a whole sketch about male penetration or whatever. But you don't necessarily, because it's clean and professional, the way it's produced, you don't necessarily know if or when those things are coming. And it enhances it a little bit because you're not in a place where they're not going to say the F word or they're not going to talk about penetration or whatever. It's like in a place where those things can surprise you in a way that isn't like alarming. Like, can they do that? Like if it were on TV or YouTube or something.
That's kind of why, doing a sketch comedy album was so fun and kind of fulfilling was because our collective sense of humor is exactly that. Talking for a long time about something normal and then throwing something crazy in there that makes it veer off course. That's always how we made each other laugh. I mean, I remember like you and I driving to play rehearsals and Oscar just saying these, I'm having a serious conversation with him and he says something totally absurd, that makes me just crack up.
Yeah.
And that for years it's been like that. So it's nice to be able to actually like write sketches that play to that and,
Yeah, the one that makes me laugh the most, I think, would be the cowboy, the Sinister Horse sketch. I enjoy that one just because how juvenile it is, but I also
that would be a good band name.
It would.
It was.
I'm in bands with worse names than that.
that was so much fun to perform, though. I really enjoyed doing that one together.
Is there any element of this that would translate to something in a live capacity? at any point? I'm not saying it's in the works. I'm not promising.
I definitely think so. I would love to do like some fun live shows.
Yeah.
I think right now it's just unrealistic.
Yeah.
For us, just as people.
Yeah.
With families.
Yeah.
With families and other things going on, But I would love that opportunity. I mean, and just to be on stage with these guys again would be so great.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of bringing it like full circles. You guys started in a theater group and then that got whittled away by time and the pandemic and other responsibilities that, okay, all we can really afford to do is an album so we can put all the work on one thing and have it published and have it be completed and not have to worry about letting anybody down by missing a rehearsal or something like that. Yeah. And then, but then if it developed to where you guys could then emerge back out of that and do something of it on the stage, I think would be really, really fun.
I think that if we ever had the chance to do it on stage, that some of those sketches would just like bounce off the walls and just be crazy. I have a feeling that we would improvise and add a lot of things to the lines, I'm sure, and it would just take it to a whole new realm if we did that. A whole new realm of juvenile foolishness for sure. But it would be like just crackling, I think. But at the end of the day, even if we couldn't do that, it's nice that we were able to get together as friends and do a creative project together.
Well, and that's what I always tell people too, because I work with, we talked a little bit about, I work with a lot of like student musicians and people who are like hobbyists and want to do something a little more substantial, just at least for that opportunity to document the kind of thing. And even if it's just a demo that you cut live with your friends or whatever, you may never see those people again. If somebody goes away to school or something, and then you have that document of, even if it's a lo-fi thing, but to actually go in and say, well, listen, we can't really commit to playing in a band with an indefinite end date, but we could produce something. And if people love it, then there's the traction to get together to do more of it or whatever. But if nothing else, I mean, it's out there and
you've captured a moment. That's kind of like a really cool
following
moment.
Through, yeah. I mean, that following through to the end of it and have it come to fruition, that's like a whole different discipline. But if you stick with it, I mean, that's one reason why we had this on CD was because it's documented. It's here. It's not in
you
the
can put it in a
cloud.
time
It's
capsule.
actually, it's right
you
there.
You could put it on the space station.
Yeah, it's I think it's
do they have CD
sketch
players on the space station?
Sketch comedy in space right now.
Do they have sketch comedy in space? Boys with Scarves from Space.
I love it.
I'm loving it. I am loving it. And if we do it exclusively for Amazon Prime, they'll get us up there.
Yeah, they'll
If we sign a deal with them like Garth Brooks is only on Amazon Music.
You know what? You know what you just did? Do you know what you just did? You just got yourself on board this project. Welcome aboard, motherfucker. Don't lose it. Jacob. I just want you to remain professional. I'm glad you're happy, but let's.
Yeah, no, we got to keep it together.
In other words, you just got yourself off the project.
Off the project. So, Oscar, how often do you get compared to Garth Brooks?
Here we go again.
Yeah.
Hey,
I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to bring it up because, like, when I walk in the room, like, people are like, "Oh my God, it's Bruce Valanche," and I'm like, "Listen."
Yeah.
But like, and so it's like when it's obvious, it's like it's not even cute. It hasn't come up yet. But now that we've talked about we're going to space to do Boys with Scarves in Space with Jeff Bezos exclusively on Amazon Prime, and because your guy Garth Brooks is exclusive with Amazon, tell me about that.
Are we still gonna get
I think the tail is within your mouth.
It was a close call. I just had a question, and then I definitely want to get into the Garth Brooks stuff. Are we still gonna get murdered?
No, I think
we're past that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because it did come back up.
Okay. We're okay.
The latest.
Off my phone. Then?
Here's the
Should
thing.
I cancel it on my phone.
Here's the thing. This guy is not well.
Hmm.
But I don't think he's in the zip code. So,
Okay.
I think we'll be okay.
Huh.
He also loves Garth Brooks. That's another. The universe is a simulation. I am just a membrane holding together random details of the universe. This guy pays good money to go to Nashville and hire professional Nashville musicians to play on these songs that he writes.
They sound great.
He kind of just screams at them. He just says, "Let's do this," and he's not going to listen to this because he's such a delusional narcissist.
Dude, I knew a guy at a studio. His name was
We're going to dox him.
Daryl Blant, something like that. But he was an
Daryl
older
Blant.
guy,
Cool
and
man
he
guy.
would
Name
like
drop.
he would like have a drum machine that he would bring to the studio, and the drum machine was always. And he would play his acoustic guitar and sing these weird, like, old school country songs. The funny thing was, his right hand was not there. It was a wooden hand. And so I swear to God. And so the strumming was always the same. It was always down like this.
And hard.
And the drumming was always. And then,
With a distorted lo-fi drum machine.
Did he file like a pick in one of his fingers? So
No,
that's
no.
clever.
His fingers were the pick.
right, but I mean, did he file them?
Was
to
it-
be
oh,
like-
I
Was it-
don't remember that.
Were they pointed?
Maybe his points was like a light. and then
We
he had worked his way
need to
heavier.
dig up that hand.
It was so funny, and he put out an album called "Just Fax It," and the album cover was just. Did I ever show this to you?
No, I haven't seen this one.
The album cover was just him with a bland look on his face, reaching for a fax machine. That was like the album
With
cover.
which
That
hand?
was, I think, the one that worked. The one that was a hand, yeah. But it was quite a sight.
So this guy has this crew of
We're back at Jake's guy.
geriatric session guys in Nashville that he, applies some level of duress to get them to play on these things. He pays them something. And so they sound really great. And then, but one of the guys is this guy, Chris, who plays guitar for
Garth
Garth
Brooks.
Brooks.
Garth Titty fucking Brooks.
Whew.
And so,
That was never proven, by the way. The titty fucking part.
We've all-
no, well, there's no way.
He's
There's
a rock
no,
star.
there's no
Garth's
way.
got plenty of backstage betties. We can assume there's some
Well,
titty
and Miss
fucking going on.
Miss Yearwood's got some milkers on her. Jesus, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm a
So
big- yeah, go ahead.
Garth Brooks is back, is what I was saying. Is that the crazy guy that was going to come down here and murder us
Mhm.
works with Garth Brooks' guitar player.
Wow.
We're taking Garth Brooks's exclusive Stream Daddy's Rocket to Space for
Yeah.
Boys with Scarves 2, Boys with Scarves in Space.
Porky after
And I think we got to do a bit from space about, like, what if we like went on an excursion to recover the wooden hand of like our folk hero.
You're taking us on a journey right now, and I'm right beside you.
See?
I love this concept.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
I think like a Chris Gaines collab or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yes,
Chris Gaines is really who you look like.
Thank you. Thank you.
he looks like Speed Racer. Oscar,
I have a Magnum
Yeah.
Sharpie
Oscar-
back here. If we could just put a little soul patch on you.
If this was just audio, I would describe Oscar as Speed Racer, who you played.
I loved playing Speed Racer. That was a blast.
But he actually does look like if that piece of anime was made flesh, it would be Oscar.
That's horrifying to think about. Like a 3D printer of just goo.
Oscar's a horrifying guy,
Accurate.
and he looks like Speed Racer.
You were Chim Chim.
I played the monkey.
Well, I mean, he looks like Jim Jim.
And that's a weird thing. That's why we're friends.
I was just checking our time here. We're doing
I could be Pops. I think
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good pops.
Yeah, we're coming just over an hour here, but I kind of want to talk about. I know, isn't it? It's you get cooking, and once I'm cooking, brother, forget about it.
How's your budget? Is this okay?
What,
Your budget for this? Is this okay?
production wise?
Well, I mean, like what you're paying us. I mean, going over an hour, it's going to be. a
No,
lot
I think
more.
we'll be. No, I think we can swing it because I just got that Lion's Choice money.
Lion's
Ooh.
Choice.
Lion's Choice.
Money.
And the Lion's. Yeah, it's not technically the sponsorship doesn't go live till the first of the year, but they told us we could start throwing those Benjis around town. You know what I mean? They really like to grease a wheel over there at the LC.
Yeah.
Well, my wheels need a good grease. So
Yeah, and that's what I told them. I said I got some guys coming down here. They really need some grease.
Roast
Okay.
beef grease.
So my thing is, I feel like the problem you may be experiencing is that when you launch something without an overwhelming in your face, here it is, buy it right now type of event, right? You kind of feel like, because I've released music like this myself, that it just feels like you're like you're hurrying up to get it done and get it out, and you're so excited, and then you have no idea what the reaction is like, because like you said, you haven't necessarily got a bunch of reviews back, good or bad.
I think honestly, I think just like for me, I don't think we necessarily care. You know what I mean? Like we literally just did this for ourselves. You know what I mean? And we just wanted to share with whoever wanted to listen to it. There was no expectation.
Well, and I think that makes it stronger, because I feel like that keeps it from being like overly contrived for a specific thing. You know what I mean? Which is part of what I love about the freedom of the format of that it's in. Chris, I'm sorry.
The funny thing is that I only did this because I thought it was going to make me rich. So we're
so disappointed.
We're kind of talking about the friend thing, but that was
down.
kind of backseat to the promise of some jack.
It took Chris a long time to come on board with this idea that he'll never make money doing this.
But it always takes me a long time to come on
we're
board.
still telling him. There's no money coming.
Yeah, there's not, Chris. Let go of the dream, dude.
Not yet.
You're not even on any of the
You guys
publishing.
start
You're
trying
not
hard
even going to know if the money comes
That's
in.
not going to happen.
It's just you're never going to find out about it, because that's, I mean,
This moment, this podcast is going to change that for us.
Stop waiting at the station, man, for that money train.
yeah, you got to go out there and take that money. You got to go down to Grand and Shoto.
Or Ferguson.
You got to go down to Cool Valley,
Yeah.
and you got to hold that guy down. And you got to get that money out of him.
Yeah.
I remember when.
Is that which guy we talking?
This, you know who said that?
No.
Tupac, when he was in jail.
I was going to say that. When Tupac was in jail.
When
that's
Tupac
what
was in
people were
jail,
asking him.
he couldn't go to Vintage Vinyl or Euclid Records or Planet Score
Right.
to pick up Boys with Scarves on CD.
Exactly.
And he certainly couldn't jack in to the wall in
That
1994.
makes me so sad that he couldn't do that.
But the music was in the melon, you know?
Yeah.
When he was in jail after California,
California
is where we party. California
knows how to party.
So did somebody sneak in a melon? Is that what you're saying? And they put the music?
They shoved a melon in his ass.
Yeah.
They did.
With music in it.
It was a musical melon. It was a melon of music.
Yeah, but I think if I remember the story correctly, when he was in jail and a journalist was there talking to him, he had just done California, then he went to jail. And when he got out of jail, that's when he started like, maybe I should do this in space, which brings us back around to what you were talking about.
But then he got shot. He was banging Jada Pinkett Smith.
And
he was
Garth Brooks
going to
shot
go
him.
do California 2.0, California in Space.
Yeah.
And then he got murked. And they shot Suge Knight so they wouldn't think that Suge Knight had anything to do with it, which we all know is not the case.
And again, this is another reason why we're compared to Tupac.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Except for Oscar, who's compared to
Speed
Garth
Racer.
Brooks.
Yeah, Chris
Or-
Gaines specifically.
Yeah.
Or Speed Racer.
Or Speed Racer.
Speed Racer.
Love it. You know, we're kind of talking through this. Just to bring it back to what you were saying, Jim. In all seriousness, I think the fulfillment of completing this album, and I had a trip to Nashville, ironically.
Huh.
You could have gotten murdered there.
I could have
You
been
could have
murdered.
gotten beaten with a shovel.
I didn't realize what danger I was in, but as I was driving and listening to the album, just kind of in the background, the way you were describing it earlier, I really started to enjoy it. Kind of remove myself from that lens of criticism that we were normally like applying, and just kind of like listened for
It's
the
so
first time.
hard to do.
Yeah, and it just sort of snuck up on me. I was like, this is really good, and that is kind of what we really set out to do, is make something that we would enjoy, that we were proud of, and I think
To make each other
achieved
laugh.
That. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that
And make money.
Yeah, and make money.
Well, there is that.
That's we got to get him a little money. Somebody
Jesus
if you go to
Christ.
the link, in the description for this episode, you can give me some money and I'll make sure Chris gets a little bit of it.
Or just like send what'd you call it? A clutch of White Castle?
Send a Crave clutch.
Yeah. Crave
Double
Clutch White
bacon
Castle.
cheese to 9711.
Chris, you're so fucking embarrassing,
It's
man.
Cosmopolitan, isn't it?
So
Crave
embarrassing.
Clutch.
Not a sponsor. Lion's Choice is not going to like all this White Castle talk.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's right.
Why don't you go down to Lion's Choice and get the Butcher Block burger?
Get that Arby's special.
Get the no fuck. Oh fuck. We got that turf war over here between that Arby's and that.
Do you guys remember Rax?
My mom worked at Rex
yes.
and she got fired and
She
she
did,
kept
right.
just going back there. And they were like, okay, it's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But she said the roast beef would come in like a cellophane, like vacuum sealed, thing, like a big log, like you see at the grocery store. And you would drop it on the ground and it would bounce 7 feet in the air.
I don't know why that's funny.
Because it's beef. It's not supposed to bounce like that. Why is the beef
I don't
so
know why I
bouncy?
laughed at that.
It's funny.
I
And
think
it's
you're
my
assuming
mom.
a lot about the beef thing.
Oh, that it is mostly nitrates and
That was
hydrogenated
kangaroo
soybean
meat.
oil.
That's why it bounced so high. It was
Yeah.
kangaroo
I
meat.
had alligator sausage with my breakfast in New Orleans one time. It was lovely. Never had the kangaroo.
I've had that
though.
before.
I like a shark.
really good.
I'll eat a chunk of a shark.
Shark meat's really good.
Sure.
That's what's that place in St. Louis called? That
Cybergs.
Cybergs. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
They're
where I get
famous
it.
for that.
I want to have that guy on the show.
I could get you that guy.
I think.
I used to bowl with him.
Which one?
The guy.
Which one?
another
The
name
guy that
drop.
owns Cyberg. Well, the one on Gravois.
It's Jarvis, isn't it? Jarvis. Cyberg.
I kind of don't know his name.
I went to school
I
with
know that
Terry
he owns
Cyberg.
this.
Because there's a
Cyberg
guy
on
the one
Gravois.
that owns Helen's I've met before, and he's the guy that's in charge of the sauce, which is the big thing. Because they sell it in stores and stuff. And him being a local guy, I was in first grade with his daughter. She was a Cyberg.
I'm having trouble thinking what this has to do with boys with scarves, Jacob.
We were talking about shark chunks. And
That's
then you
right.
said the
That's
place on
right.
Gravois, and I'm like, Cybergs. I'm like, oh, I'd love to have him on this show.
It's a natural progression.
It's
Jim.
actually, it was pretty
it.
kosher.
Hey, ask
It's-
her, what is this, amateur hour?
Now, that would be a great sponsor. But I get the Cyberg sauce to sponsor the show.
Sure.
And then we take that money straight to space.
I love it.
Guys, we're getting to a really natural conclusion here,
Yeah.
but I just want to reiterate Boys with Scarves on all streaming platforms and available for purchase on CD at Euclid Records, Vintage Vinyl, Planet Score,
How did you
He
remember
remembered
that?
those things.
because I asked you 4
You only
times.
heard it one time and you remembered all of that.
Yeah, I asked you 4 times. I only heard it once, but I have a pretty good memory once I get in there. And the fact that we survived this together, and I really, really appreciate your patience and your willingness to do this. I love doing this show, especially when I
appreciate
have friends that have something to promote. Is always great because sometimes I have to do this show and there's nothing to promote other than I released a single 6 months ago. You should go stream. Or whatever. So having something that's the album's not brand new. It's been out for a few weeks, but again, I can definitely recommend to everyone listening that it's definitely worth putting on, giving it a chance to just figure out what it's all about. Because I think the thing is that the freedom of it that was so great is really maybe what leaves it kind of in the gray space, maybe in the cloud or whatever, like we were talking about. But I really feel like that works for it because once people see it and decide to listen to it, I feel like the format makes nothing but sense. And I never once felt like, oh, this would be so much better if it was a video. I never felt like that. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So,
That's nice to hear.
yeah, write all this down for your
Sounds like a
reviews that you're
quote,
not
yeah.
getting. I'll write you a bunch of reviews and pretend to be different people. All these places are so understaffed. Nobody at the RFT has time to
wouldn't
say,
know.
we didn't say that.
Right.
Nobody here said that. That guy doesn't even work here. You know what I mean? So Boys with Scarves available everywhere that I just described, and Hooch and Daddy-O out there in the deep cockles of space-time.
Deep Space
The
Nine.
dark web.
Is there anything else you guys have coming up or other things you're working on that you want people to know about?
Tell me about stuff.
Yeah, I've got a comic series that just started called The Atonement Bell.
Oh, I
It's
love
a horror
that.
comic series and published by Red 5, and it's out in stores now. It started last month, and the next issue 2 comes out next week. And it's a 4-issue series.
Is that at Fantasy Shop?
It'd be Fantasy Shop, anywhere you
Planet
buy comics.
Score.
It's not a Planet Score, actually.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
Because that's just usually where I go for my comic things, and we're a comic household.
Yeah,
we have
so-
lots of comics.
yeah, Fantasy Shop has it anywhere you buy comics.
And say the
pretty
name again, just for my listeners.
much. The Atonement Bell.
I love it. I love it.
Thanks.
One edition's out. Another edition comes out next week. Are
The
those
second issue, yeah, and it'll be collected in trade.
issue, not edition? I'm sorry.
It comes out in April next year.
Yeah. Loving that. I'm loving that.
Just because you're a comic fan, he had previous comic series as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Butcher Queen.
Butcher Queen, Black Star City,
available as
Butcher
well?
Queen, Planet of the Dead.
How many issues do those normally go?
4-issue series. Each
Nice.
one. Yeah.
Oh, I
And they're-
like that.
Dead Palace. And actually, Oscar and I wrote a action comedy anthology called The Rough and Tumble.
Yeah.
There's not like a centralized place to hunt that information down, is there
I
necessarily?
wish there was.
Yeah.
If you're looking for the Red 5 the comics that I wrote, you can go to red5comics.com.
Yeah. And how do you
Find
spell
those.
your last name?
Ousley, Ousley.
That's for my listeners, not for me. I know how to spell it, but I wanted to make sure that.
You were testing
Asking
me.
for a
Well,
friend.
because if people are listening to this on the toilet right now and they feel like, oh, I like comics, this episode was really funny, I'll go check that out. I want them to know how to spell that stuff so they don't know what they're looking for. You got to take yourself to the audience. You got to think, but if I'm on my toilet and I'm full of Xanax right now.
Anich, A-N.
This is fun, man.
Isn't this
is
great?
really fun.
And
It
guys,
was really
I'm
fun.
totally down to do this again. If we start seeing new things happening with the project or related projects, I'd love to anytime absolutely talk about any of those things. And then also, if there's certainly we'll keep the audience informed if there's ever an update for any kind of a live celebration or something. That kind of is an expertise of mine. So if that's something we start talking about, I'd love to help. And all that kind of stuff. It was so good to see you two guys again. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
likewise, man.
I so appreciate your
Honestly,
time.
this was really fun. It's been really fun to talk to you. It's been great.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
Isn't it great?
I
I'm so
genuinely had a good time.
I'm
yeah.
so glad we didn't get murdered.
Me too.
Well,
It
we're
was
not- we're
on
not
the
out of
table.
here yet.
We're
It was.
by shovel, that's
We have to
rough.
walk to our cars.
That's true. I don't. As soon as you guys are out, fuck y'all. Dead. Yeah, for sure. Okay, guys, this has been Jacob V Weekly. Find boys with scarves all over the place. Find us on patreon.com/Jacob V. We did it. Be safe.